We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
By popular demand, we are opening the podcast with the story about my dad and him flipping the Ford Focus. I asked you guys, I think on Wednesday or Thursday, which story do you want between that and my mom going on one of California's most wanted lists? But we're going to go with the Ford Focus story. Are you ready, Mike?
I've not even heard this one, so I'm ready and excited.
Quinn, it's an absolute treat. I'm glad you're here on the call as well.
I have not heard this either.
Let's start with my dad, to preface, is an absolute monster in every way, shape, and form. Had to quit drinking at 21 because he was just that big of a monster. He has more speeding tickets than birthdays, and it's not even close. Going into this, he had been off drinking for a while. He wasn't drinking in this situation. He is driving a Ford Focus, recently purchased, right off the lot, brand new, not a used Ford Focus, in the rain, going probably above the speed limit. His motto, by the way, is you can double the speed limit on any street or highway and survive. So he lives by that, which is obviously a bold take in and of itself. But he's driving in the rain, torrential downpour in the rain, and moving his way through here. He ends up driving too fast, and if you've never driven in the rain before, if you drive too fast in the rain, you can hydroplane. It's where your tires kind of like spin on top of the water, and then the car just 360s 3 times, flips over, flips over, flips over. He survives. It's fine. He makes it out of the car. He's, however, packing some drugs. He has drugs on him. And he's like, so talk about the speeding tickets, more speeding tickets than birthdays. He's got some unpaid speeding tickets, a warrant out to get those paid. And in California, I don't know if other states work like this, there's a point system on your driving record. If you get above a certain point total, you can have your license suspended, which would be bad for his job. He was a mechanic. And your insurance just skyrockets. So he's trying to avoid a point as well. He scrambles out of the vehicle. It's completely totaled. In the torrential downpour, tries to grab all the drugs out of the car, doesn't successfully do that. And then this random couple sees him and says, "Hey man, do you need help?" He's like, "Absolutely." Jumps in the car. And I wish I could get a picture of my dad on here. He's a menacing looking dude. He's only like 5'7", 5'6", but he looks like an Italian mobster, but like a dwarf version. You've seen him before. Yeah. How would you describe him?
Oh gosh. Yeah, because he's like completely bald, right?
Yeah, it's completely bald.
And he has a mustache too. I want to say, sorry, but like with a mustache.
Yeah,
also.
A goatee. He usually rocks a goatee.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like a Raiders fan.
He's a Raiders fan through and through. So gets out of the car. This couple picks him up. They just picked up a bunch of pastries, and he's sitting in the back seat. They're up front. He's wet as hell, just coming out of the rain, dirty as hell in the back of this nice car. And they're saying, "We got to drive you to the hospital." He's like, "No, you can't drive me to the hospital." He's screaming at them, "You can't drive me to the hospital." He's like, okay. They're freaking out. And I always like to think of my dad's stories from the perspective of the other people involved, because they're obviously losing their mind. They tell this same story and are absolutely losing their mind. But he keeps on telling them no and accidentally knocking over the pastries onto the floor of the car. And he keeps picking them up with his dirty, wet hands, putting them back in, knocking them over. And eventually they're like, "Dude, just stop. Leave them on the car floor. We're fine. We're calling the cops." He's like, "Nope, get me out here. Let me out." And he's like, "You need to let me out of the car," because he can't get the cops called on him. So they let him out on this corner in Oakland. He walks his ass home, and he's explaining to my stepmom, who's obviously really, really upset in this situation. He says, "Hey, I can't say I was driving that thing. Let's blame it on your brother." He said, "Let's have your brother take the fall for this." And the brother, my stepmom's brother's like, so my uncle technically, he's like, "Absolutely, I'll do it for you, dog." An absolute diehard, a lifer. Wow. But my stepmom refuses. She's like, "You are not doing this to my brother." His brother at the time was only like in his early 20s, could have taken the hit on his record, but like my stepmom was losing her mind. He's like, all right. So they end up going inside, and they're thinking about what they're going to do. Because not only does he need to avoid the warrant, the point on his record, but he owes over like 30 grand on the Ford Focus because he just bought it. And he doesn't want to pay that. He just totaled the car. So they're sitting there, they're thinking, they don't do anything for a while. Car gets collected. They're calling. They're asking, what do we do? We need to talk to Vince Gayle. He owns the car. My great-grandma, his grandma, dies 2 days after, 3 days after that. She was very sick. He says,
oh, no.
He says, oh, you know who's driving the car? My great-grandma. Tells the cops that she was driving the car, and because he has really good insurance through his work or whatever, doesn't have to pay the Ford Focus for the rest of it. It gets completely washed in the insurance, avoids the point on his record, and my uncle doesn't get on it either. So he gets out of the whole situation, blaming it on my great-grandma, who, like, obviously, like, she lived till, like, she was, like, 90. So, like, it's not, like, a huge deal. Like, it was unfortunate when it happened, but, like, it was honestly a little blessing in disguise. He's like, I owe her a lot, honestly. She saved him in the back end. So, if anyone asks, my great-grandma was driving that car, and my dad avoids the whole thing.
Well, let's hope no Oakland insurance agents or Oakland PD
or like the
right
statute. Is there a statute of limitations on this?
Who knows, man? Who knows? But my dad avoided disaster and lives to tell the tale.
The people are also asking why he hates me. And he came to Cincy for the Raiders game when the Raiders were in town to play the Bengals. And you said I think it was a Friday night. You're like, yeah, me and my dad will come over like 7 p.m. or whatever. And when he shows up, he had been drinking since noon already at this point. He showed up incoherently talking. And so I don't remember exactly why he hated me, but I was like trying to help him out. And he thought I was like making fun of him.
Dude, I picked him
trying
up.
To help him out.
He took a taxi from the airport that weekend, and he came out of it with a joint in hand and gave it to the Uber driver and said, hey, you can keep this. In Cincinnati. Coming from California where it's legal, it's a little different. Then that night, he's like, it's a Thursday. And he's like, we have to go out. I was like, dude, I have work tomorrow. You can't do this. And like, we go down to the banks. We stay out till like 2 a.m. This is pre-COVID, of course. Yeah. Then the reason he hated you is because we were playing Beard Eye. And you kept telling him he couldn't trap it. And you can't. Yeah. That's against the rules. But he just like couldn't catch a die to save his life. He was like crossfaded out of his mind. And so since then, he calls you verbatim. You still hang out with that asshole friend Mike. He still calls you asshole friend Mike, which is pretty great in of itself. I'll have to think about stories we want to tell in the next pod. There's some options I have. There's some good ones. There's one where my dad wrecked my first car, 65 Mustang Cherry Red.
Dude, he's living on...
It's living, yeah. Well, that story's also very good, but maybe we'll tell that a different time.
We should just get him on the podcast.
We might need to get my dad on the podcast. That's actually not a bad shout. Not a bad shot. All right. Looking at the divisional weekend here, pivoting away from, committing crimes. Let's start with Packers-Rams. This one went...
I don't know what Lamar did this weekend. Might qualify. I'm kidding.
Packers-Rams was... probably as expected. It was a big favorites weekend. Like the favorites went well until Tampa Bay, of course. But I was surprised at that line. I didn't think that the Saints should have been 3-point favorites, even though they were at home in that game. Start with Packers-Rams. Is there a team, left that can really stop this offense? Like if you're beating the Green
I want to
Packers,
say no, because this was the best defense. Now Aaron Donald at half strength or whatever definitely was not himself. But even just that secondary, he made him look like child's play. It was the offense is very good. Like it is incredibly well schemed. You have a very good offensive line, even without the best, pass protecting left tackle in the NFL. It's still a top 5, I'd say, top 10 offensive line in the NFL. And then Devontae is just a problem. Like you saw him even when he was against Jalen Ramsey was a problem. I think this offense. I'm not more impressed, but like as impressed right now. Like the Packers defense is the reason I think they're still 4-point favorites heading into this week against the Bucs. Like they have the horses now to get it done. They have the talent. Like that run defense that was a massive, massive issue, and why like their Achilles heel obviously last year against the 49ers. I think I don't want to say it's fixed completely. I don't want to jinx them that way, but like it's not the wholesale. This is how you attack them is by running the football. I think they can shut that down as well now.
Do you see this one being, I think the total right now for Packers-Bucs is 51, and Packers favored by 4. Where are you leaning right now on that line?
I can't even talk. I'm like too close to this one because I think I'm hopefully going to be going to the game. My brothers were at the game this past weekend trying to get tickets for this game this upcoming weekend. Hopefully, fingers crossed, going to be there. And I can't say anything because I know if I get too confident, it's going to come back.
Don't get too confident. 4 is an interesting one. I expected this one to open at 3, where you largely see these games land. But at 4, a lot of me wants to lean Tampa Bay. But weather's a factor. Green Bay's a juggernaut right now. I wasn't surprised that they beat the Rams down like they did, as good as that defense was. And I know Brandon Staley got hired, 5 minutes after the final whistle, but Aaron Donald was not playing himself. Mm-hmm. And I think even if you do have as good of defense as the Rams had this year, better offenses win. I had someone, the guy who's the front desk at the building I live at, said, hey, I have some analysis for you. He knows I like working football. The best quarterbacks in the NFL win. It's I know he's making a joke, but this is how it works. Deep in the postseason, if you want to make deep postseason runs every year, you need to have the best quarterbacks in the NFL. 4 of the 5 highest graded quarterbacks in the NFL this year, according to PFF, are in the postseason. The only one that's not, Deshaun Watson, which is absolutely absurd in and of itself, the fact that he only won 4 games. But I really do think that the highest performing quarterbacks are what take you deep, and Jared Goff just isn't that. Can we use this as an opportunity to talk about the future of the Rams and what do they do with Jared Goff?
Well, it's what we've been banging the table for here at PFF for probably the past 3 or 4 years now. It's that the game has changed. The game has distinctly changed from 20 years ago. The tenets that won you football games 20 years ago are not the same because it's a different game completely. Offenses are far too powerful. Passing game has become far too powerful. You have to invest in that on both sides of the ball, investing in being the best pass game you can be and being the best pass coverage team you can be. So that has changed. Kind of lost my train of thought there. I had another point that I completely forgot.
No, the passing game has changed. We're talking about Jared Goff and the future he has with the Rams. They can't trade him. I think they can trade him and save money. I don't know if team would trade for him.
My second point was going to be that, and yes, you could still make the playoffs with a good rushing team. You could be the Titans last year and this year. You can be the Browns. You can do that. But to win Super Bowls, to then get through the playoffs, to then beat the likes of Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, you have to be elite in either as a passing team or in coverage. You cannot still keep running the ball and think you're going to beat these teams in the playoffs. You can get there. You're not going to get Super Bowls. Was my final point.
And I'd even take that argument a step further and say you could go to the Super Bowl with a mid-tier quarterback. You could, Jimmy G last year. Box into that.
You did with Jimmy G last year, but they had the best pass defense in the NFL.
Yeah.
The 49ers did.
But if you want to consistently go to the championship round, if you want to consistently go to the Super Bowl, you need a very good quarterback, a top 3, top 4 quarterback in the NFL. And if you don't, you're not going to consistently get there. And that's why you can't settle at the position. I always say this. You can't pay a quarterback. You need to pay the quarterback. And when you pay a Jared Goff, a Carson Wentz, Derek Carr, you find yourself in the situation where you can't go the distance. You can't build enough around him to win deep in the postseason. And that, I think, is an easy transition to these next games here, because I want to talk about...
Oh, I do have one more thing to admit for the Packers-Rams game. After that Allen Lazard touchdown that put it basically out of reach, 2 scores, dry January ended.
When you texted me, I was like, not surprised. You went probably 12 days over the line, because I think I had it at 2 or 3 days with some bets on the side, but you went deeper than I thought.
It's like nature versus nurture. Like the nature of being born in Milwaukee, being a Packers shareholder, I just opened a Miller Lite and I had to drink it. It went down like water. It was basically, it felt like drinking water to me. So maybe technically.
If it makes you feel any better, there's a lot of dry Januaries that have ended this weekend. A lot of people whose dry Januaries did not go as planned.
Yeah.
I love that you just described it as nature versus nurture.
Nature wins out always.
That's incredible. Well, I wanted to jump to the next games here, and I'm sorry dry January ended. I'm happy because now I get my friend back. I'm hitting you up every weekend. You're like, yeah, I'm working. I'm drinking a Coors Edge, crying. I mean, not crying. That's where you're at right now. But I'm glad you're back. He's back. But you talk about paying a quarterback, not the quarterback. 2 quarterbacks that are in this conversation to be the next guys paid, Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield, both lost this weekend. Yeah. Buffalo Bills beat down the Baltimore Ravens. He leaves that game with a concussion, but the big play there was the pick in the red zone where he completely didn't see Taron Johnson, who returned it 101 yards for a pick 6. That pretty much put the game out of reach for Lamar Jackson. And for the Browns, even when Chad Henne came in, they didn't have enough firepower. They didn't make enough good decisions with the football, throwing the ball, to win that football game, which I thought was a winnable game on the road. But where are you right now? And I know you're writing an article for PFF.com on extending Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield. Because if you do, you have to know this. If you do, you're going to have to make those 2 guys top 5 paid at their position. That's how the league works. They're going to be top 5 in the NFL in average annual salary if you do extend them next year or the year after.
So I'm of the opinion that the team that should right now is the Browns with Baker Mayfield. And to me, it's because you can get him at the lowest right now. You can get him kind of towards the bottom of the market. He was exceptional the second half of the season. He only had 7 turnover-worthy plays in his last 12 games, including the postseason. He was not making mistakes with the football. He was very accurate with the football. This was the guy that we thought we would see coming out of Oklahoma. He just wasn't. It was still just a very run-heavy offense. When they did put the ball in his hands, when they did have to pass, you saw a guy who was a very, very good quarterback still. And I think that's kind of what you expect coming out of Oklahoma. This was like the next step in his career. And so I think you can get him towards the low end of the market, though, because his stats still aren't exceptional. He's not going to outpace someone like a Russell Wilson with his contract. If you were to sign him to that extension now, you could get him for like a $34 million a year, $33 million a year. That's when you can kind of make up that difference, because if he plays 2 more years like this, they start to pass a little more. That offense advances with year 2, year 3 in Stefanski. All of a sudden, it's $40+ million a year, because that's just the way quarterback contracts have gone. $28 million a year was the high in 2018. Only a couple of years ago, I guess that's 3 years ago now, was $28 million a year was the highest paid contract in the NFL. Now it's up 45. So that's going to go higher and higher with these guys. The one I'm hesitant about signing, though, is Lamar. Number of reasons. One, because he's going to ask for more. He's going to. He
won a league MVP.
He has an MVP. Yes, he is going to ask for more than Deshaun Watson. He won an MVP, but it is impossible to ignore at this point his performance in the playoffs.
No,
not being good. His overall grades in the playoffs: 46.2, 62.7, 68.1, 48.7. Those are his 4 games. When it matters most. I actually looked up the splits on this today. His grades against teams that play in Ohio for his career, over 90. Against everyone else, it's 76.
Oh, wow.
He has feasted on the Browns and the Bengals. He can dominate bad defenses, but when it is a well-schemed defense, he kind of shrinks up. Now, some of that might be, offensive coordinator Greg Roman as well. That has been kind of his MO throughout his career when he was with San Francisco, in Buffalo, and now here, even though, the quarterbacks he coached there didn't do anything without him either. So, I just would be hesitant to give him that Deshaun Watson money after what we saw from him this year and again in the playoffs.
Quinn, you have to play the clip from Steve Smith on NFL Network where he talks about Greg Roman and the simplicity of that offense. Play it right now.
Yeah, when you're watching this offense in a run game, and I speak from a wide receiver's perspective, that there are times stories are coming out that some of the wide receivers can't get a separation. Well, when you're running the type of route combinations, very elementary school, very crackerjack-like, very easily to defend, you can't necessarily put it all on the wide receivers. If you have, hey, you two go deep, you two go shallow, and Lamar throw to whoever's open. That's just not the NFL. That's not the complexity of the NFL, and their passing game is not very complex. And so I just believe Greg Roman is a fantastic coordinator. However, that fantastic coordinator needs to start looking for a job somewhere else, because I believe that his time has expired on this offense here. If you want Lamar Jackson to continue to be a stellar quarterback, an MVP type of quarterback, you have to implement a second notch or a third level of the passing game that makes it a little bit more complicated, because it's not very complicated. And my 6-year-old who's asleep right now can probably run this offense as well.
I think that is a very good take from Steve Smith. Greg Roman has put together a simplistic offense that defenses are countering and catching up on. I think there should be legitimate concern with Lamar Jackson's play in the postseason, but there should be equally, if not more, concern with how Greg Roman has put this offense together. And maybe some of that is because you want to make it simple for Lamar Jackson, and maybe he's hamstrung in that way, but still, you have to find a way to get more creative. Yeah. To quote Steve Smith, it can't be elementary concepts where defenses are catching on so quickly, because I think Greg Roman has shown his ass as much as Lamar Jackson has in the postseason, because people are catching up to both of those guys.
No, and I will say, and that's, like I said, that was his MO, and that's why people hated him in San Francisco. It's why people hated him in Buffalo. But like I said, what did Colin Kaepernick and Tyrod Taylor do without him? They did not put up the numbers that they put up with him. It's almost impossible to remove an offensive coordinator from the quarterback position. Like, is the offense simplistic because that's what's best for the guy at the quarterback position, or is the offense simplistic because that's all Greg Roman knows? I'm not sure at this point, but I'm just saying that he has a proven track record of success, but also coming up short when it matters most.
All right, last game to touch on here, and then we'll jump to the prospect rankings for the 2021 NFL Draft, top 5 at each position. Bucs Saints, end of an era, man. Drew Brees hanging it up after this. All reports point to him hanging it up after this season. Last game in the Superdome.
I mean, they shouldn't let him not hang it up. Like, they should. If he's not hanging it up, he's not playing with the Saints next year. You cannot bring him back. I'm sorry. There's just.
Would you rather have Drew Brees?
Everyone and their mother knew like that the best thing that gave him the best chance to win, and like somewhere along the line in the third quarter, would have been to bench Drew Brees. Everyone watching that game.
That would have been so sad.
It would have been, but everyone knew it, and they just couldn't do it because it's Drew Brees. He's the guy there. Like, he has won the Saints Super Bowl. He is like a New Orleans legend for life. But it just never. You just knew. It was almost like watching a car crash in slow motion. You just knew it wasn't going to end well. It just wasn't going to. Whether it was this week or him going to Lambeau would have been even more of a car wreck, I think, in the cold, throwing it 3 yards down the field every pass. Because the arm's just not there. Would you rather have Big Ben or Drew Brees in 2021? Big Ben. Really? I don't think that's close. Man. And now I don't want either. Yeah. But I really just think this is like end of line. Like, Peyton Manning got lucky to have the best defense in the NFL carry him, but that was kind of similar to Manning, how he looked. That's what Drew Brees needed. Yeah. If he was going to go out with a bang, he needed a defense and an overall team that could just lead him and carry him deep in the postseason to where they could win a Super Bowl, because he wasn't doing it, which is unfortunate to say because he's one of the all-time greats. Since 2006, which was when PFF first started grading NFL games, he is the third-ranked quarterback behind Rodgers and Brady in PFF grade. That's how good he's been. He was, in his prime, one of the best deep passing quarterbacks in the NFL. He led consistently year after year in total deep passing yards in the NFL. He's the only quarterback with multiple seasons over 5,000 passing yards. Multiple seasons. Every other quarterback that's done it has only done it once. He's done it 5 times. I mean, he's going to go down as one of the best ever. It's still a first ballot Hall of Famer, in my opinion, even though he does only have 1 Super Bowl ring. Are you in agreement with that? You think he's first ballot? Yes, I think so. On the opposite side of the spectrum, I don't think it's Tom close. Brady is playing like some of the best football of his career. Like, he's an older quarterback in the NFL playing at a very, very high level. I am not 100% convinced. Like I said, that spread for Packers Bucs is 4 in favor of Green Bay. This is going to be a game. Like, I think both of these offenses are playing really, really well right now. Don't count out Tampa Brady. Yeah, and the thing, I'm pissed at myself because I pulled these numbers on Saturday and forgot to mention it on the draft, the pregame show that we did. But Todd Bowles, that Bucs defense, the first 2 times they played, when they played press coverage, even on like the run plays that played press coverage, on the snaps they played press coverage, the Saints offense had a negative EPA per play. On the snaps they didn't play press coverage, it was like 0.15 EPA per play. This past weekend, Todd Bowles, only 7 snaps not in press coverage the entire game. He's got some dogs in the secondary. So they realized that the arm was shot, get everyone up at the line of scrimmage and force him, no matter what, to throw anything down the field to beat you. And they couldn't. He just couldn't. I mean, we talked to Calvin Ridley, and he said, he didn't want to mention any defensive backs that gave him trouble, but what he did say is Tampa has some good ones. And we've talked about, I've said it at least multiple times on this podcast, how much I love the strategy Tampa Bay has done on just investing in the secondary with high draft capital. With Sean Murphy-Bunting, Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, like, just keep throwing resource at it until you hit. Because now they have 3 really physical corners that can play press coverage to Todd Bowles' liking, and they did it against Michael Thomas and company. Michael Thomas didn't have a catch. He didn't catch a ball. Drew Brees' son had more catches in that game. Well, it was after the game, but still. Tom Brady threw him a dime in the back of the end zone. Unfortunate stuff for the Saints. They go home packing. I don't know what they do at the quarterback position. They're in a similar spot. No, not similar, but both the Rams and the Saints are in a bad spot at quarterback. Saints have to find a guy. Maybe it's Jameis. Maybe it's Taysom. And the Rams are kind of stuck with Jared Goff when I think overall he's pretty limiting. Interesting stuff for sure. All right, let's take a quick short break here and then jump into the 2021 NFL Draft rankings by position. This article comes out for PFF.com. I think it's tomorrow. Yeah. Tuesday. So you guys get a free preview. Get a free preview beforehand, but this one comes out Tuesday morning. Position rankings here. Let's start with the quarterback. I'm going to read the 5, and then we'll just touch on some highlights, touch on some big names here. Number 1,
Trey Lance. No, just kidding. Trevor Lawrence of Clemson, they're at 1. Zach Wilson of BYU at 2. Justin Fields of Ohio State at 3. I think there's a little bit of a gap here. And then it's Trey Lance, North Dakota State at 4. And then Mac Jones at 5 of Alabama. Am I right to say there is a gap between the top 3 and Lance? Or is it closer than people think?
I think there is. Because you got 3 guys there, the top 3, that's like all the tools that you want. And the performance is matched on the football field. Trey Lance, all the tools you want. Performance not quite matched yet. Like, not quite there. So I do think
Mac Jones in an opposite tier where the performance has been great, but he does not have all the tools you want.
Yeah. And so the interesting one here, though, the debating one, the one's going to get debated, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, ad nauseum. Talk to my boy Bruce Gradkowski, QB guru here at PFF, Toledo legend.
He grades every single throw.
He's all on board with Zach Wilson.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. He said he loves Fields, the leadership aspect, thinks he's going to be great. Wilson's just, he's that guy. So, and that always makes you feel good when Bruce
Gradkowski's on board. Jordan Palmer on that interview. We numbered every single episode, by the way. We went back and numbered every single episode on the podcast to help you guys find them. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but the Jordan Palmer interview, the guy said like Zach Wilson could be the second quarterback off the board. And at the time, we were like, whoa, really? And now watching more tape and comparing him to Lance and Fields, it's like, yeah, no, he probably should be the second quarterback off the board. Where do you feel comfortable taking Mac Jones? Because I think he's so hard to place. He's so hard to place in mock drafts because like you need a quarterback. It's the most valuable position. Let's take him top 10. But in a league that's driven by quarterbacks with tools and the ability to play outside of structure and make these off-platform throws, Mac Jones isn't that guy. How comfortable are you spending a top 10, top 15 pick on Mac Jones?
I pulled the greatest Mac Jones stat for the draft guide, which you guys are going to love this thing. So Joe Burrow last year, throws he had into a tight window, completions he had into a tight window, 124. Mac Jones, all of this entire year, 44.
Oh my God.
3 times as many Joe Burrow had. That's why you're not seeing the hype. Like, that's why it's just until you see a guy have to do that, I don't know if you could trust.
I'd love to hear that same number on Tua.
Yeah, I should have pulled that one too, but it's just a different level of comfort you feel because hitting guys who are wide open there is a lot of guys that can do that in the NFL right now. There's more than 32 if you could give them wide open receivers every single time and clean pockets. Mm-hmm. A lot of guys will put up very good stats. That doesn't happen a lot in the NFL. And
according to PFF's ball charting, he wasn't even as accurate with those open windows as Zach Wilson, as Justin Fields. There are other more accurate quarterbacks on our ball location charting in college than even Mac Jones.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like, I'm not going to hate on anyone for drafting a quarterback. If you go to our mock draft simulator, like you'll get an A+, I think, for any time you draft a quarterback, no matter who it is. It's a little broken right now, the logic there. But it's one of those things where, like, you can set your sights higher.
Yeah.
We talk about the guys that get you to the place you want to go are the top 5, top 8 type of quarterbacks in the NFL.
Can Mac Jones be that?
The Jimmy G's of the world, you could win with them. You could win a Super Bowl with them. Everything has to be perfect. Is Mac Jones Jimmy G, where he's just like a fine starter in the league, probably a top 25 quarterback in the league, but not a top 10? I think that's maybe more the range he'd fall in once he gets to the league. But it's tough to say. It's really tough to project out. And like I said, that offense is just difficult. So if you drafted him, if you are the 49ers and you drafted him, I'm not going to hate on that. I probably wouldn't if I was them, though.
You have a hot take here in the running back rankings. People are going to be upset. You have Travis Etienne of Clemson at 1, which I'm completely on board with, and I think you'll see a lot of people argue for that. Then, though, Javonte Williams, North Carolina, a PFF favorite. He's going to be a PFF favorite this entire draft process. He broke the record for forced missed tackles per attempt, and his yak per attempt is stupid. Eric Eager wrote a piece for the site looking at college to pro projections for Williams, and it's all nuts. Like, this guy has done very well from a predictive metrics standpoint. Then, at 3, you have the Alameda County's finest, Najee Harris Najee Harris of Alabama. And then Michael Carter, Javonte Williams' teammate, North Carolina at 4, and Kenneth Gainwell of Memphis at 5. Explain to me why you take Javonte Williams over Najee Harris.
I mean, because he's better. That's right.
Let's go.
No, but 75 broken tackles on 157 attempts this year. The highest rate we've ever seen from a running back in college football of 7 years doing this. And that's pretty insane. Like that, and he's got all the physical tools also. Like physical tools-wise, size, speed, explosiveness. Probably better than Najee Harris. Like the reason you're leaning Najee Harris because he was just in the national championship game and it looked cool when he breaks tackles. Like,
He also has like touchdown record for days, right?
Yeah, like it is good volume stats, but like for as much as we know about the running back position being a product of those around you when you are playing behind the best offensive line in college football, you're going to look good. Like a lot of guys would have put up nice stats this year and gotten a lot of hype behind that Alabama offensive line. Javonte Williams did it by North Carolina offensive line that's not going to have nearly as many guys drafted. So I don't know. I'm not drafting either of them. We're probably going to get drafted because of our feelings about the running back position, but that's how I would want them, rank them.
You say that kind of condescending. The correct feelings about the running back position.
Well, I don't want to like say we're correct on stuff. That's like because
you don't think that we're right on that. You shouldn't take running backs like inside the top 20.
Oh, okay. No, yeah, I think so about that, but
Najee Harris could go like 18. Like you could see Najee Harris go like as high as in the top 20. And I think I've heard from McShay, I think Jeremiah has said it, both these running backs, Etienne and Najee Harris, could go in the first round, which I just think is too rich.
And another thing about big backs, they look better in college. When you're 6'2", 230, 6'2" is also ridiculously tall for a running back. You get chopped down in the NFL. Derrick Henry's 245, 250. That's a different animal in terms of like size. He was going to be bigger than NFL linebackers too. But when you're 230, you're bigger than college linebackers. You're a grown man among boys. When he gets to the NFL, he's going to be the same size as the linebackers tackling him. He's going to be probably less explosive than most of the linebackers tackling him. Like that inbuilt physical advantage that makes it look awesome when you eat shots and just keep chugging in college isn't quite there when you get to the NFL. There's not a lot of like backs who win purely with that physical advantage, and the ones that do look like Derrick Henry and A.J. Dillon, where they're enormous and still physically imposing. 6'2", 230 is not going to be that at the NFL level.
Your mantra in college was eat shots and keep chugging, wasn't it? Or where'd you pull it?
It was just eat wholesale. It was I used to do eating contests back in college.
Did you?
I was good at those.
What's one of the wildest ones you've done?
Like you just, like go to the bar and they have like, a
for volume or for like spice?
4-pound burger and 2 pounds of fries, something like that. And you get it for free. Those are, until you've had to stuff down 2 pounds of French fries, you don't understand how awful that is.
I don't want to.
I puked afterwards. I made myself puke afterwards because you feel like just absolute butt. And it was just like, usually when you puke, every other time when you puke, it like shoots out. It was just falling out because it was like mashed potatoes.
Dude, please stop.
That took a turn, but
that is wild. All right, eat shots, keep chugging. Let's chug along here. Wide receivers. This is another one where I feel like, some people won't be on board with this. Wide receiver 1, Jamar Chase of LSU. Wide receiver 2, one spot ahead of Devontae Smith on the big board is Jalen Waddle. Then you have Devontae Smith, obviously. And then at 4, I think there's a gap here between Smith and this next guy. Yeah. Rashad Bateman at 4 of Minnesota and Chris Olave at 5 of Ohio State. I have a couple takes here. One, the earliest I'm taking Devontae Smith in the 2021 NFL draft is 6.
Oh,
that's the earliest I'll take him. And that's barring that all 3 quarterbacks, the first 3 on our board, and Penei Sewell and Jamar Chase are off the board. Then, so at 6 of the Eagles, if that happens, I'm taking Devontae Smith. Because there's a conversation between Smith and Waddle. We had that in the last podcast. What do you want at the receiver position? Do you want absolute juice or a guy that creates consistent separation like Smith has? And I'm sprinting the card in. So the earliest I'll take him at 6. I'm sprinting the card in for Devontae Smith if he does fall to the 9, 10, 11, 12 range, because I do think that there is a gap between some of these high-end guys like Smith and some of these other players at different positions, because it's not like a particularly elite cornerback class. There's not a Jeffrey Okudah in this class. The edge class we've talked about not being that good. At offensive tackle, I think it's Sewell, and then I take Smith over the other guys. I think the earliest I take Devontae Smith is 6, and even that is too low. I've seen mocks where if you don't have him inside at 2 or 3, you're doing it wrong, and I can't get on board with that.
See, if I am, 2 is obviously crazy, but Dolphins are a team that's gonna be rumored to Devontae Smith because the wide receiver position is not great.
Tua
there and Tua in that connection. But if you could tell me, and I think there's a very good chance of this, so 4 and 5 in this list, Rashad Bateman, Chris Olave, you could tell me that I can get one of those in the second round. And I think you'll be able to. Don't quote me on that. We're too far out to say for sure, but I think you'll be able to get one of those 2 at the top of the second round. I'm not drafting a wide receiver in the first round. I don't think the gap between Jamar Chase and Chris Olave is so much to me that I would be willing to draft one of these wide receivers.
That's a good take. I think that's a great take.
because I think those guys are exceptional in their own right in terms of they will get open at the NFL level.
I also have a take, and it's a disagreement with your board.
With my
Chris
board.
Olave is a better receiver prospect than Bateman.
Oh.
I like Olave over Bateman.
That's, I mean, eye of the beholder. I can see that. Olave's faster.
Better separator.
Maybe a little bit better route runner.
More consistency on the outside.
Very good ball skills.
Very
that
good
gets
ball
underrated with Olave. Olave, though, not been great after the catch over the course of his career.
He's bad after the catch.
Slight guy. Kind of almost like Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley's very good. You're not going to throw him a bunch of screens and ask him to break tackles. Like, that's not his game.
And I don't want to. The offense I'm running, it's Bruce Arians on steroids, baby. Our average depth to target at 14.
Bruce Arians might already be on steroids. He seems like the kind of guy who would just, try it just to see what's...
All right,
probably
let's
not a lot
show
of things he has.
I don't think that's that hot of a take either. And if anything, it's praising Devontae Smith. That the earliest I take him is 6. And not the latest, but like where I'm spreading the card in is that 8 to 12 range. Like, yeah, it's worth it at that value. Let's go. But I even like your take more that like, hey, the difference between these top 3 guys and the guys I can get the top of the second is not vast enough for me to avoid the position entirely, which I think Nate Tice has talked about that, about position scarcity, specifically at the receiver position, and how it's easier to find guys and it's maybe more replaceable than people give it credit for. All right, tight end here.
I disagree that's more replaceable, but it's just like there are a lot of body types that win.
Yeah. It's true. It's true in Tinder too. Tight end, Kyle Pitts.
Well, for you, maybe.
Kyle Pitts of Florida at 1. Pat Freiermuth of Penn State at 2. I like that. Brevin Jordan, the Miami kid, at 3. Hunter Long, Boston College at 4. The contested catch monster. Hunter Long, his entire highlight tape is just contested catches. And it's a big reason why he graded really well this year. And then after that, number 5, Tony Poljan of Virginia. He didn't sneak into the top 5 until just today. Jeremy Ruckert of Ohio State is returning back to Columbus to play in college. And we didn't mention this. Devontae Smith has taken his talents to Mobile.
Yeah, just to do interviews.
Pretty
lame.
I saw that come out on the Reese's Senior Bowl Twitter account, and I was excited because like Devontae Smith going against the best corner there is Elijah Molden. Mm-hmm. He's probably going to play like slot safety in the NFL. He was going to put on an absolute show, but I forgot that he like broke his thumb or something in the championship. So he won't be playing or participating in the drills, but he'll be interviewing with coaches and stuff like that. So we'll see Devontae Smith in Mobile. Well, we won't be there, but he'll be there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the tight end class.
After, honestly, you want the top 2, and then that's kind of it. You kind of like last year. There's just some guys. Brevin Jordan's an interesting name. He's tight end in name only though. Like the guy's 235, 6'2", 230. Like he's an H-back. He's
Gerald
Najee Harris size. Like he's basically Najee Harris, but they call him a different position. Yeah, I mean, we've said that there's not a lot of true difference maker at the tight end position. Kyle Pitts is 1. Freiermuth, I think if you're actually using your tight end as a run blocker a lot, which like that is where the NFL is going. If you actually have a tight end, he better be able to run block, because if not, you want a slot receiver playing. Mm-hmm. That doesn't help you to have a guy who runs a 4.8 running the seam. That guy's never getting open. So, like I said, you want one of the top 2. Brevin Jordan, if you kind of got a role for him in your offense, by all means. Then after that, it's just some guys.
Unfortunate. I think we say that about the tight end class every year. But
we'll do the
a little bit more about Pat Freiermuth. I feel like he's not a guy we've brought up a ton on the podcast because he did opt out of the 2020 season. But
midway through, he played like 4 games.
Oh, did he play 4 games? Oh, felt like he opted out. Because his 2019 tape, though, there's a lot to like. I mean, people make the comparisons to Gronkowski, and like you see some of it. Like he's a physical ass dude who is tough to bring down.
Yeah, he's not going to be. It's all about expectations. I think he's going to be more like old school tight ends. He's not going to be George Kittle. He's not going to be Travis Kelce. You're not going to line him up and ask him to win one-on-one. But very good ball skills, will win contested catches, and can offer some after the catch in terms of physically, like kind of like how Rob Gronkowski did, where he wasn't going to shake you, but a 265-pound man who's as strong as Freiermuth is a little difficult to bring down when you're like 195-pound safety. So that he kind of wins in a very different way than Kyle Pitts, but can actually be your inline blocker.
Offensive tackle. Penei Sewell of Oregon at 1. Then we have Rashawn Slater, the Northwestern offensive tackle at 2, opted out this season. Christian Darrisaw of Virginia Tech. I watched all of Darrisaw versus Quincy Roche and all of Darrisaw versus Carlos Basham. And it wasn't even close.
Handled them.
Quincy Roche was awful in that game. And he went up against him, I think, 42 pass rush snaps. and I don't think had like a clear win on tape. And Basham, I think it was only like a handful, but like still, Basham I thought was going to bully the kid, and just not the case. Again, those are the two best edge defenders Slater saw, or not Slater, Darisaw saw.
This tackle class is good. It is a very good tackle class. Darisaw, you're going to hear a lot more about him. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he ends up going like top 10, top 12. I think he's that good.
So at 4, you have Tevin Jenkins. Sorry to flesh out the list. Tevin Jenkins of Oklahoma State at 4, and then Sam Cosmi of Texas at 5. The thing I wanted to ask you about Darisaw after watching him, what's your opinion of his feet? Because you watch Sewell and you watch Slater, and the fluidity in the feet move so much quickly, much more quickly than Darisaw. Darisaw is a plotter a little bit. Yeah,
he's more of a guy that's so the guy who reminded me of just the way he moves as a prospect was Eric Flowers, where like Eric Flowers is not a nimble big man, but as soon as he hits you once, like you're toast. Like he had reps against Roche where he hit him with one punch and like threw him to the ground with just a right paw.
There's a handful of those reps on his tape where he's like just bullying kids accidentally. He is
in ox, I think was the word I used to describe him in the draft guide, like where he is just more powerful than everyone he's going up against. And when you have that, no one's going through you. Like that is just a nice starting point. And while he's not terribly athletic and nimble, like he's plays with good balance. He's not falling on his turf. He's not overextending and trying to get that first punch in on guys and getting shed. Like he is kind of like, I guess Ronnie Stanley is probably the best pass protector in the NFL. That's, I don't want to say in that mold, but like not super great feet. Ronnie Stanley's not the quickest dude, but he's very measured and not getting out of control ever. Like just a guy who could have played a different sport also probably and been good. You just see that coordination there.
Yeah, if you aren't nimble or quick, you better be balanced because you got to be able to withstand some of the blows there. But Darisaw's tape is some of the most fun tape.
And he went against, like you mentioned, Roche, Basham. He went against good talent. Like one of the highest grade seasons we've ever seen in the tackle position, and it's not like Brady Christensen this year, 96-point overall grade, didn't face maybe one guy who will play in the NFL. That's not what Darisaw. Darisaw was almost weekly. Like the ACC had some good edge rushing talent, and he handled all of them.
All right, let's jump to interior offensive line. Like that humble tease or subtle tease of the draft guide. That comes out Monday, January 25th. 2021 NFL Draft Guide comes out to Edge and Elite subscribers. Subscribe to make sure that Mike has a job in 2022, right? Yeah. I mean, that's the reason you do it.
That's still up in the air.
It's still up in the air. It always is. You didn't commit to your dry January. That doesn't show commitment.
I didn't get the extension I was looking for.
I'm scouting from an off-field perspective. The fact that you can't commit to a dry January.
No.
It can't commit to a girlfriend? Well, too soon. Interior offensive line. Let's look at Elijah Vera Tucker of USC at 1, Wyatt Davis at 2 of Ohio State, Landon Dickerson, the big, mean Landon Dickerson 69 as Quinn likes to call him, Alabama. 4, you have Creed Humphrey of Oklahoma, and then at 5, Ben Cleveland of Georgia. Those last two, I think both of those guys will be at the Senior Bowl, Creed Humphrey and Ben Cleveland. And I think Landon Dickerson's actually going as well.
So he has torn ACL, but he's the kind of guy to where when he gets drafted, every single draft analyst will be like, I love this pick. Everyone's going to love this. This is going to be every single person's favorite player because of just the way he plays the game. Like offensive line coach's dream. I think this is like his 5th year of college. He transferred from, where did he transfer from?
Miami. Or no, Florida State.
Okay. And he's just by all accounts, I mean, he's the guy who came in the last 2 plays to kneel it down at the end, suited up with a torn ACL for the national championship game. Just like everyone's going to love this guy, and with good reason. I think he's going to be a very good center. It reminds me of kind of like Ryan Jensen of the Bucs, where he's just the meanest dude, and you're going to want to go to war with him every single play.
And you need that along the offensive line.
Yeah.
You don't want to be on ESPN when Booger McFarland's talking about your offensive line like he was with the Steelers, calling you soft, tweeting out toilet paper emojis to the Steelers. You don't want that. Landon Dickerson is going to keep you from that level of disrespect because the guy's an absolute monster. And there's a clip, I think, in the who did they play before they played Ohio State? I'm blanking.
In the playoff, Notre Dame. How dare you?
Notre Dame. There's a play there where he's not dressed on the sideline and they're like running over Notre Dame and he's just like smiling on the sideline like some psychopath. That's what you kind of want. I think that's what you want in Landon Dickerson.
But Elijah Vera Tucker is absurd too. On a massive Alabama offensive line, he's just like he's built like a fridge. Like he's just from top to bottom is one width. His waist is as wide as his shoulders. It's a crazy build.
I could dream for that review. Yeah. Elijah Vera-Tucker is the cream of the crop.
We do a lot of build scouting along the offensive line. Last year it was Jonah Jackson. This year it's Landon Dickerson.
What about Deontay Brown's build?
Deontay Brown.
The guard for Bama.
He's the Michelin man. That's the build he's got.
All right, let's move through the defense now. Defensive interior, Christian Barmore of Alabama arguably had the best two-game stretch of any prospect this season in the playoffs. Lee McNeil of NC State. Love that he's at 2, ahead of Levi and Wuzurike. I love McNeil a lot. And then you have Marvin Wilson of Florida State, who really fell down draft boards this season. Just did not live up to the hype after having a really dominant underclassmen campaign in 2019. Did not live up to the hype in 2020. And then you have Davion Nixon of Iowa at 5, who right now is being mocked a ton in the first round. Let's start there. What don't you see in Davion Nixon?
I just don't see. He's got the physical traits, but he's not more athletic than Levi and Wuzurike, who's 3 on this list. He's not. I don't see Fletcher Cox-esque physical traits. He's not a special athlete for the position. I don't even see some of the Neville Gallimore last year, who was I don't think he's going to test to that level of freakiness. He's definitely a plus athlete, but not to that level. And then not a lot of pass rushing moves. He has a physical. He plays physical. He plays the way you want. He has that attitude, but he's not even close to a polished product. And he's also 4th year of college. He's 1 year at JUCO or 2 years at JUCO and then 2 years at Iowa. I don't know. I just expected more with the hype he was getting throughout the year and being on the awards list for the Buckus, or not the Buckus Award, was the Bednarik Award. I didn't see near that. He's a solid player, but that's that's a 3rd rounder in my book.
Edge defender, hot take there. Edge defender, we have
weekend tier defensive line class too. We'll rank the classes at the end of all this.
Nice. Edge defender, Kwity Paye at 1 of Michigan. There's a rumor that we might be getting Kwity Paye on the podcast. It's a rumor right now. I'll see if it can get confirmed. Number 2, we have Gregory Rousseau of Miami. Number 3, Jason Owe at Penn State, one of my favorites. I also really like Azeez Ojulari, the Georgia edge defender. You have at 4. And then Boogie Basham, Carlos Basham of Wake Forest at 5. I think my take here is, of all these guys, considering where they're currently being mocked, the guys I want are Owe and Ojulari. Because Paye and Russo are getting mocked high, and they both could be very good. They're toolsy, traits-driven prospects who don't have elite production. Kwity Paye better than Russo. Mm-hmm. But if I could get Owe or Ojulari at the top of round 2, maybe back end of round 1, I really like that value compared to maybe where Russo and Paye end up going.
Yeah. Paye is what? He's 15th on the draft board, something like that.
Rousseau scares me, man.
I guess with this edge class, I would be scared to draft him. I think he is that talented. I think he's that good. But 1 year of college, and then was a guy who won more on the interior than on the edge. And yeah, that's nice to have at the NFL level. You can kick him inside in 3rd downs. But I think we saw with Jadeveon Clowney this year that you'd rather have a guy you don't have to scheme a role for. Mm-hmm. You don't have to kind of change your defense up to get him his one-on-ones. You'd love to just have a guy who's just going to win from the outside, and you don't really have to think about it too much. So yeah, if you're telling me Rousseau at pick 15, where I can get, because it's a really deep edge class, or I can get someone like Jalen Phillips in the 2nd round, even though he has his off-field whatever, worried about his concussions. I'd probably rather have Phillips in the 2nd round.
Yeah, it's an interesting edge class, because I do think Gregory Rousseau could get drafted that highly because he's this freak. But
you really how long? If there's no combine, he's going to be one of the guys that I'm the saddest that I don't get to see, because I think he's going to check in with 37-inch arm.
Oh, no, yeah. His length and his speed and all that is just nuts.
So,
and honestly, I mean, he's ranked as high as he is on our board for a reason. Because that length and that athleticism is rare. But you have to know going in.
It makes your life so much easier.
Yeah.
It is easier to beat blocks when it's like a boxer. Mm-hmm. When you have long ass arms and you can beat the guy to the punch, it just makes your life easier.
But you have to know going in that in year 1, you're probably going to have to scheme a role for him largely. Yeah. And then if you can, you have to trust your position coaches, et cetera, to develop him into a better player in the NFL. Because he's not, you can't say he's done yet. While some of these other guys are already putting up really good numbers. I don't know how much better Carlos Basham Jr. is going to get.
That's a lot of this edge class, though. It's a lot of guys who are you're going to have to teach them a lot. They might not be ready, but there's a lot of good athletes in this class.
Linebacker, you have Micah Parsons, obviously, at number 1 of Penn State. Then you have Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah of Notre Dame at 2, Nick Bolton of Missouri at 3, Zaven Collins of Tulsa at 4, and Chaz Surratt at 5 from North Carolina. This is an interesting group because I think you could play all these guys at different positions. I think the two that are most similar are maybe Zaven Collins and Chaz Surratt playing a similar role in the NFL. But like Owusu-Koramoah, you're going to probably want on the like playing outside linebacker, slot type of stuff. Micah Parsons, I've heard playing him more on the edge.
You want. Oh yeah.
Some want to play him more on the edge, and I think he's open to that as well. I'm interested to see that. Is Micah Parsons as an edge defender the best edge defender in this group?
Yeah.
Wow, like that. I think that in of itself tells me I need to find a role for him where he can play along the edge.
That's why I think he's getting hated on unnecessarily. It's one of those like out of sight, out of mind things. But like, he is truly a different breed physically and when you watch him blitz, rush the passer, he could do that at a high level in the NFL. Like that's why I said I think you take him first in this edge class. I really do.
Do you know the backstory on Micah Parsons' recruiting?
I don't. I've heard he was. I mean, there is some like off-field red flags though. Like he was.
There are some off-field red flags. This isn't bringing up those. I don't know the specifics on those. But Micah Parsons was going to go to Ohio State. They recruited him hard. But in the recruiting process, he was there the same weekend in Columbus where Game Day was there, and they brought him on set and they introduced him to Kirk Herbstreit and different guys there. But there's a rule in NCAA recruiting where you can do a lot of things, but you can't on a recruiting trip introduce them to media for whatever reason.
Oh.
You can't introduce them to media. So they had to voluntarily pull out. Ohio State had to voluntarily pull out of Micah Parsons' recruitment to avoid like sanctions or whatever. And that's where he went ultimately going to Penn State. So he should have been at Ohio State, but they screwed the pooch there. All right. Cornerback, Caleb Farley at 1 of Virginia Tech. This cornerback class is interesting. I kind of want to have a conversation here. But Caleb Farley at 1 of Virginia Tech. Patrick Surtain at 2 of Alabama there. And then J.C. Horn, South Carolina at 3. Asante Samuel Jr., 4 from Florida State. And then Tyson Campbell at 5, the guy from Georgia. I think Caleb Farley, so some people are having the conversation between Surtain and Farley. I don't think it flips for me. Watching a lot of Surtain back, like there's 2 routes against Ohio State where he goes up against Chris Olave, and you see guys that have polish, guys that can run routes can turn Patrick Surtain. You still see some of these concerns that you saw with Trayvon Diggs. He's better than Trayvon Diggs. I get that. But like a long, not elite athlete.
That's the thing.
Like I don't think, does he crack 4.5? Does he go into the high 4.4s? I don't know. And that I think you have enough concerns for to where I like Farley, that prototype type of guy, freaks list, athlete, long. And then I have Surtain. And then after that, I think you have a different conversation with who's the 3rd, 4th best guy.
Surtain's very good. Like I'm not I don't want to act like I'm hating on him. Like I just feel like we're low on a lot of these Alabama guys. I'm not trying to hate on Alabama guys, but like when you're not that elite level of athlete, it's just going to show up more at the NFL level. When you're, and it already showed on some go balls. I think Josh Palmer from Tennessee.
Yeah, that's the other game where you turn on the Tennessee tape. Josh Palmer was on him.
Yeah, and so give me the guy that has the same length, same size, maybe not as polished, but then runs the 4.35 like Caleb Farley, and still is like pretty damn good in terms of his ball skills and a lot of the other things. So, yeah, I still am going to lean Farley, but Surtain's good.
No, Surtain's still very good. I just don't think I'm not willing to put him over Farley or even really have the conversation. And then I think J.C. Horn is also...
We just had the conversation.
Well, we did just have the conversation. Damn it. I think J.C. Horn's very good. I like having him over Asante Samuel Jr. because it's more likely that he plays on the outside. And then you obviously have Tyson Campbell there, who's another toolsy guy that got beat a ton, but he's probably a better athlete than Surtain. Like I think Tyson Campbell is pretty rare in that regard. He's got some special traits.
I think Samuel still plays on the outside, though. You
really?
said Horn more likely plays outside. You can move him inside. To me, he reminds me a lot of, just watching him, the way he plays the game, Brent Grimes.
Ooh.
Hopefully, he comes without Miko.
You never know.
But you never know. But yeah, Asante Samuel,
That's a great call.
I think he can be that type of guy in your defense. Peak Brent Grimes is pretty damn good. So.
Do you remember Brent Grimes got the nickname Optimus Grimes when he shut down Megatron in like a game?
I do not. That's kind of dope,
it was great.
though.
It was great.
He also had one of the coolest interceptions ever, real early on in his career.
I think that was that against Megatron?
Where he just flew.
I think that's where he earned the name.
Was it?
Maybe it was. I don't know. I was like 10.
But that's gonna be the comp in the draft guy.
That's hot.
Right.
All right, safety. Last one here, and then we'll close out the podcast. Trayvon Morg of TCU at 1. Then you got our Darius Washington of TCU at 2. At 3, Hamza Najaldeen, Florida State. 4, Elijah Molden. Calling him a safety, I think, is fair. Is probably going to play, slot safety role in the NFL. And then you have Andre Sisco at 5, which is honestly a damn shame because he should be at 5, but he is so much more fun than the 5 rank. I mean, he is an absolute roller coaster in every way, shape, and form.
He's the Marcus Peters of the safety position.
That's a great take. He could run in the 4.3s. Like, he is that fast. His top line speed is nuts. He's going to at least run in the low 4.4s. He's an interesting prospect. I'm excited about the safety group. There are some guys here that you could have some fun with in the defense.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting guys. I'm still a fan of the safety class. I think it's one of the better classes defensively in terms of position groups, which we'll talk about at the end here. But there's no real guy. Like, Moorig's the closest, and I still don't think he's like a perfect prospect by any means. I don't think he goes top 15. I'd probably draft him somewhere in the 20s. But there's no real Jamal Adams in this class, Derwin James. There's no one like that. But I do think day 2 is going to be a lot of guys that I'd love to stockpile in this safety class in terms of the different body types you can get.
I think that's a very good take. I mean, Elijah Molden, arguably the best slot corner in this class. From a production standpoint, he is. He was dominant in the slot for Washington. I'm excited about potentially adding him to a defense. And you just like we talked about with the Bucs, just invest in the secondary, man. Grab these different guys. You need to get better in coverage. We said it at the top of the podcast. The best teams in the NFL stop the pass and throw the football well. Investing in some of these guys on day 2, like a Molden, like a Sisco, that's where you want to be. Let's now
I just watched that Brent Grimes pick. It was against Drew Brees back in 2009.
Oh, wow.
That was the highest I think I've ever seen anyone jump on a football field. He was flying in this.
I need to see that.
You got to check it out.
All right. Well, let's rank the strength of classes here. I'll let you take the rank.
All right. So the strength of the classes, this is like the position groups historically, how strong these positions are. And it's a good year for the passing game. Quarterbacks, this is a relatively historically good class, in my humble opinion. Quarterback's great. This is a very good quarterback class. Take one of those top guys. Then wide receiver. Then offensive tackle, I think. And I'd say interior offensive line is at 4 here. I'd say those are very, very classes that you don't see once every 4 or 5 years. Now, wide receiver, we just saw one last year. But I don't think if you go ahead and look maybe a little bit towards 2022, there ain't a lot of talent. We catch, everyone loves to say, oh, you say that every year about this class, that class. No, 2022 is not going to be. It does not look like a good wide receiver class on paper. This is the one you want to take part of. So wide receiver, OT, interior offensive line. And I think there's kind of a gap. Those are the classes that you want to get in on. And then edge, safety, linebacker, cornerback, tight end, running back, and then defensive tackle is dead last. It's a bad defensive tackle class.
Cornerback that low is also concerning because you want to see, when you're looking to draft high positional value in the first round, you want to see some guys in the first round. Where's the line for first round caliber corners here? Is it Farley and Surtain and that's it? Would you take Horn at the back end of the
probably
first?
Horn and that's probably it then. Samuel's just kind of outside, just kind of top of the second round.
And Darion Kendrick was top 30 on our board before he decided to return to school?
Yeah. The returning to school thing could be a bitch this year. Seniors have until
March.
And to say,
which I think speaks volumes to there being no combine.
Yeah.
If you're saying seniors don't have to, commit to the NFL or going back to school until March, you're not going to hold a combine, are you? I can't imagine you would.
Yeah.
I saw that article that came out recently saying they're going to pretty much do everything to not do one. Have a lot of remote stuff. I think you're going to see a lot of guys running 4.1s, 4.2s this year. Elijah Holyfield comes out in this class, probably runs a 4.4. Honestly, that's probably where he's at.
God damn. That was still, what was it, 4.9?
I think it was a 4.8, 4.9. And then his pro day ran a 4.75. I was like, oh, bet.
It was the stiffest 40 also I've ever seen. Pretty brutal.
Brutal to see. All right, that's going to do it for the Monday episode of 2 for 1 Drafts. We'll be back Wednesday morning with the next episode. What are we talking about Wednesday, Mike? Let's get a little tease going.
What are we talking about Wednesday?
I think Wednesday we might have to run through another mock. Seth Galina dropped his mock draft on PFF.com today. We could rip that to pieces.
It was just LSU's entire team.
LSU's entire team goes in the first round.
And the Saints had all the first round picks.
Somehow Mickey Loomis pulled off the steal of the class.
Yeah.
No, maybe we'll go over Seth Galina's mock draft, do some of that, see if some other people drop some mock drafts. I think it's time to get another consensus. Especially now as 4 new picks are locked in. Let's get another consensus, see where people are at on mock drafts. Until next time, Austin Gayle, Mike Renner, 2 for 1 Drafts.